Well, hello and good afternoon, and welcome along to our Analytics Half an Hour. This afternoon, we're going to tackle the Universal Measurement Protocol. Now, this is a piece of Google Analytics. I don't understand why they don't make more of it. They undersell it. It allows a vast range of activities way beyond web statistics and stuff like that to be tackled. I mean, it's clear that it got introduced because of mobile, but its application goes way beyond that. We'll use email tracking as, frankly, a somewhat trivial example, but you'll get the idea, and hopefully you'll realize the scope and the importance of this protocol. Now, just before we get going, let me introduce myself. I'm Vernon Riley. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. I've spent my career working with systems and processes. So I apply engineering insights to enable the measurement and reporting systems to go and to be tailored to the business. Right. If you're watching this live, just a word about the interface. It's fairly simple. To the right of the main window, there's a sidebar, and in that sidebar, there's a chat window. I'll do my best to catch up with any messages if you like to post them to me, but I may need to deal with them at the end, as obviously whilst I'm talking to people, I can't necessarily read all of the messages at the same time. So with that, welcome along. Let's get going. Okay, so let's look at email opens. This is a fairly easy to understand situation. You'll send out email opens through a CRM system or an autoresponder. And most, if not all of those, will allow you to do some tracking. They'll tell you how many of your emails have been opened. And the way that it does this, almost without exception, is it does it via a tracking pixel. So it puts a tiny image, a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image is typical, into the email. Which, because of its size, is invisible. And when the email reader opens your email, the retrieval of that tiny image causes the count of the number of emails that have been opened to be incremented. Right now, it's not the best statistic in the world, right? And any of you who work with email marketing will know this. It can be readily manipulated by the email readers that people use. Many email readers have a preview window, and if that preview window is of a size that includes the position of this tracking pixel, then the automatic preview will count as an email open. So it doesn't mean that a human being has opened and seen your mail. It just means that some automated system has opened it, right? Having said that, it still can provide some useful indications, but clearly, it's an extra place to go and look when you're reviewing statistics. It gives you a fairly crude open versus not open binary count, and you're at the mercy of the autoresponder and CRM system as to the way in which they present it, right? So some of them, the graphic presentation will be really good. Some of them, it may not be great, right? So you can look at numbers of opens, but you may or may not be able to look at them and segment them by the time of day, country of receipt, and get extra information out. So the Universal Measurement Protocol, as I'll show you, will offer you an opportunity to measure response in a more granular way, but its scope goes way beyond email. So what is the Universal Measurement Protocol? Right? Well, the Universal Measurement Protocol is a protocol, got the slide the wrong way. It allows you to track any device that is connected to the internet. Now, Google did this because there was a problem, as it used to be with their old version of analytics, that the device needed to be able to run JavaScript. Now, that was not a problem for browsers, for people using a web browser, but for some mobile devices, that was going to be a problem. So they invented a system that would allow any electronic device that's connected to the internet and can send an HTTP request, and any request across the web for a web page is something called an HTTP GET. right? So anything. So you've got a situation where all sorts of devices that are anything but web browsers can send those sort of requests. It could be a TV set-top box, it could be a burglar alarm, it could be a telephone system. Now you see, there were one or two telephone systems that allowed you to count numbers, right? Numbers of people who phoned and relate those to what was going on in terms of your marketing. But the Universal Measurement Protocol made it a whole lot easier for the people who make telephone systems and telephone switchboards to route the data into Google Analytics. Desktop email clients, right? The example they can do HTTP GETs, right? They don't run JavaScript, right? Thank goodness, right? Mobile web apps, the possibilities are endless. You've got all sorts of things, all sorts of electronic devices that can send requests across the internet. So broadly, anything electronic that's connected to the internet, it can probably take part. It can make use of this Universal Measurement Protocol, right? Now, if you think, if we've now broadened it to any device, now relate that to what Google Analytics is, right? It's not a web stats package. It's a universal data warehouse. It's a thing capable of storing enormous amounts of data, right? And with a fairly sophisticated mechanism for presenting it and processing it in a graphical form that is reasonably easy to understand. So you've got all of these options for recording data. So now you can get all sorts of data into Google Analytics that you wouldn't previously have been able to get, right? You can leverage all of that effort that Google have put in, right? And they've effectively broadened the scope of Google Analytics. It's not a web statistics package anymore. It's a universal data tracking service, right? Now, as I say, why they're not shouting about this and making more of it, I don't quite understand. Now, let's look at how it can appear in Google Analytics. Well, actually, it's pretty flexible, right? You can record, you can pretend that things are pages. You can create what are called virtual page views. They look like pages in Google Analytics, right? So imagine a set of process steps, right? Name them as a sequence of pages, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., right? So if you then send those into Google Analytics, you can see them as pages. But of course, Google Analytics now doesn't know the difference between these and real pages. So if you wanted to show them as a funnel, right, and have the concept of conversion, you know, a point in this sequence that you wanted people or the device to reach, then you could measure all of this. So you get the opportunity to show the progress that things have made through a process, right? So you can measure and show processes with Google Analytics. You can arrange to count events. And the events in Google Analytics, as we pointed out previously, have a flexible naming convention. You know, you've got the category, you've got the action, you've got the label, and you've got a value of a number, a value that's available to you to specify what the cost or what the benefit of that event actually is. Now, these offer you pretty unlimited possibilities. You can do most everything with those, right? I mean, yes, I suppose you could run out of scope for naming, but you've got a possibility of naming pages that goes without limit. You can have any number of subdirectories and a number of pages, so you can fit your process to whatever naming convention you want, and your event handling is pretty unlimited as well, right? But you could also, if you were minded to, count e-commerce transactions, right? Because e-commerce is the other thing that Google Analytics measures, and it's got a rich hierarchy there in terms of stock keeping units and transaction IDs and values and all sorts of things like that. So you've got the opportunity with this measurement protocol to send information from all sorts of new places into Google Analytics, right? Now, I have to say, that's not all, right? It's not just the fundamentals that you can choose, but as you send these bits of data in, you can bundle all of the other source and rich contextual data with them, right? So the stuff that you look at in Google Analytics, like the country, the geographical location, source, medium, campaign, all of these other bits of contextual information, you can also send alongside the measurement protocol as part of the data message, right? Now, I realize this is not exactly standard use of Google Analytics, but I'm going to suggest this is a fantastic facility that we've been given, right? Google has had to invent a system that is flexible and will allow any device to take part, right? The system's pretty much free, and all you have to do is put a bit of time and thought into working out what you want to count. How do you want to name it? How you want to display it? You've now got pretty much no limit on the device from which you can get it, right? So you've been given a fantastic opportunity, right? The numbers of things in business that you can count and display through this mechanism has suddenly become enormous. So the Universal Measurement Protocol is an enormous step forward, right? Now, I promised that I would show you email opens, if you like, the somewhat easy and trivial. Now, here we are, email opens. I ran a campaign a little earlier in the year where I was sending a whole series of emails, right? And I said when people opened it, I wanted to have the event action of open. You'll see it's down the left-hand side, behavior in the normal place for events, behavior flow, events, top events, action, open, and a label. And this label related to the number of the email message. Purely arbitrary, the label meant something to me. The labels you pick, they'll mean something to you. So you can put anything into this system. You've got a mechanism to record enormous amounts of data whilst you and all the systems you have are asleep, right? And it'll just get recorded and you can process it and segment it and do all sorts of things with it after the event. Okay? So, is it difficult? For the geeks? No, it's minimal. It's the 1 pixel. It's an image that's width 1, height 1, and a string of gobbledygook. Now, don't worry about that, right? It's part of the page address, the query string, right? You hand that to your developer and say, I'd like to be able to send this, right, via an HTTP GET to googleanalytics.com, and then it all happens, right? 1 or 2 parameters to sort out. So the effort isn't in the IT implementation. It's in thinking about the possibilities. And that's really why I wanted to draw it to your attention. This is a huge business capability that isn't being widely publicized, right? The scheme's robust. The presentation tools are proven, right? The IT implementation costs you next to nothing. It doesn't cost you anything to use the system. Google has placed it all at your disposal. It doesn't necessarily mean anything to Google. So your any challenges you might have thinking about the confidentiality of the data, I'd suggest you can deal with those at the same time. So what have we talked about? Well, we've talked about the Universal Measurement Protocol. We've talked about the fact that you can use friendly or precise language to name your things. Well, I've given you a simple example of how you might use this for tracking emails. You can do all sorts of things. You can track videos, you can track stuff using databases, you can use emails, you can do all sorts of things. So I'm hoping that short webinar has helped you. If you've got any questions, you can always send them to me. I'll flick through to my details. There's my LinkedIn profile, my email address, the blog, and the website. So That's it. Not an essentially very complicated topic, but one with ramifications. So when you're next driving somewhere or got a moment to think about what you could measure in your business, right, using this infrastructure that Google were kind enough to provide free of charge. This is Vernon Riley saying thanks for listening, and I'll look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Bye for now.